a rally tomorrow will be in the Eastern Cape at Umtata, and it's going to be addressed by our General Secretary, Dennis George. And then it will be in conjunction with one of our biggest union in the public sector, the Public Servants Union. And we'll be having rallies all over the country. We've got reaches in all over the country. But then the main rally, as I said, is Umtata. Okay. Then from there we mark what is called, that's the second leg, we mark what is called a Workers' Month. We, as FETUSA, we mark May as Workers' Month. So we're going to have a series of road shows where we visit our affiliates throughout the month of May.
You are known as the federation that gets thousands of people onto the streets. FETUSA, seen in the past as somewhat of an elite trade union federation because you do deal with skilled workers maybe earning a little bit more. Try and explain, where are you in the landscape of workers' bodies?
That is true. Most of our unions, I could say, maybe an estimate, more than 80% of our members, they are highly skilled members. For example, the majority of South African Airways pilots belong to FETUSA, and in the mining, like most of the skilled work is done now by FETUSA. So the majority of our unions, they are artisan-based. But we do have vulnerable workers. We do have affiliates in the security industry where it's unskilled labor. So, but mostly yes, it is true that most of our workers are skilled artisans.
And their issues must be very different than the people fighting for more than 3,500 rand as a minimum wage, for example.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
What are the main issues?
That's a very good question. Remember, if we have profiled FETUSA like as made of skilled workers, and people would not necessarily need 3,500 rand, but because first before FETUSA were South Africans, so it is in solidarity with the rest of the South African workers that as FETUSA we took part in negotiating for a minimum wage. We have been there for the beginning. It was a negotiation over 2 years under the then Deputy President, who's now our President, President Ramaphosa. So we really wanted more than the current 3,500. But what happens, because it was negotiated at NETLAC, which is a tripartite institution where you have business, labor, and government. So with negotiations, you have to compromise. So we came down from an original, we in fact wanted 26 rands a month, but through negotiation, we ended up, we settled for 20 rands a month. Even though it's not an ideal living wage, but you should remember that an estimated 4.5 million South African workers earn below that amount. So although it is not ideal, it's going to lift millions and millions of South African workers out of poverty.
However, Saftu, the new federation, says you're a sellout. Do you regret putting yourself in that position?
No, we're not going to engage them on that level. We'd rather engage on the reality on the ground. And one of the main reality on the ground is that the profile of the South African economy is that it is almost 80% in private hands. So government doesn't own the economy. It only controls about 20%. So whatever policies come, you have to negotiate them with the private sector. So you might have an ideal for a much higher minimum wage, but the reality on the ground, you have to negotiate with the private sector. For example, a very good example, I mean, the ruling party, the African, over the past years, it has come up with very good policies. One of them, which is relevant to labor, is the affirmative action. But policy, but year after year, so the Minister of Labour will tell what is called an equity report. You find that year after year, the improvement is negligible. And why it is that? It is because even it's a good policy, it has got to be negotiated with the private sector. So that's what happened with the national minimum wage. You might wish for the ideal, but you have to face with the practical realities of your country.
So do you feel comfortable working within the current legal regime and you're aiming to ensure that transformation actually happens on the ground?
Yes, we are very comfortable. So what is happening, if I can just give an outline, the minimum wage was supposed to have been announced tomorrow. That was the original plan. But because there is a a parliamentary process which was not completed, so it's been moved to a later date. So what happens from the day that it is officially introduced in South Africa, for a period of about 2 years, it will be like in a pilot phase, so as to test like the successes and the challenges on the ground. Then after 2 years it will be reviewed. So that's what exactly is going to happen. And another thing, I mean, the minimum wage is not like totally new in South Africa. Currently we have what are called sectoral determinations for vulnerable workers like your domestic workers and the farm workers. And the Minister of Labour, through what is called sectoral determination, like she announces or he announces a minimum wage, which is currently around R8 an hour. So as organized labour in Network, in conjunction with COSATU and NACTU, we have managed to lift that minimum wage from R8 to R20, which is like a big improvement.
All right, thank you so much for your time this evening explaining Fedusa's stance on where we are right now. Frank Nxumalo from Labour Union Federation, Fedusa. All right, we're now